Hi, all. Um, there is a chance that this may be slightly off because I'm making my July TBR a little bit early just because, well, for a couple of reasons. So, this may change. I mean, they always change, let's be honest, right? Best laid plans and all that. Um, but there may be a few things I have to shift around just for, um, for other things or things that I didn't wrap up in the last few days of June where I'm at right now. So essentially there are two big kind of focal points for me in July. One is I have a big pile of arcs I want to get through. And I try to be pretty far ahead on those. So I have a handful. Actually, I think I have 3 left in June that come out in July, and I would like to try to read those. Obviously, I want to read them before they come out. They come out at the end of July. So my July TBR is based on things that come out in August and into early September, with the hope that I will have finished the June ones pretty early into July if I need to carry into July. The second thing is I'm participating in the Bookish Drummers Battle of the Bands Readathon. And so there are a number of prompts. There are 16 prompts, and I have this need to do all of them. So I feel like, I don't have, there's no reason, I'm not going to get punished. No one's going to, people might be disappointed that I didn't get all the points, but I will feel like I failed if I don't get all 16 points and all 16 prompts. So that's my goal, is to get all those done. Luckily, a lot of the arcs I have to read hit some of these prompts, so I can kind of use, I can do both. I can get the arcs read, but I can also use them as books for the readathon. And then I have a couple other things I want to get to, that, new books I have, and, I'm sure as things come, I'll just randomly decide to get something from the library or something, will just catch my interest. But essentially, I'm looking at probably 20 books or so, if not more, for July. So I'm not sure I'm going to have a lot of flexibility in this month, but we'll see. There's luckily the first week of July is a nice holiday week. So that may give me some time to get a lot done. But anyway, so I'm going to go through my TBR. And like I said, this is pretty much mainly going to be centered around the Battle of the Bands Readathon. So I will kind of go through that, and I will talk about the books I've picked, and then a couple other things I'm planning on reading this month. All right, so the Battle of the Bands Readathon, it's broken into 4 teams, and they are by the decades. So the 70s, which is run by, the captain is Ian the Reader. That's going to be Fleetwood Mac. The 80s, which is Journey, is Here There Be Stories. The 90s, which is my team, is Nirvana, and that's Nico's book reviews. And Green Day would be the 2000s, which is the Bookish Drummer. So the way this is going to work, if you're just so you understand, where my points and how, why certain books might matter more. I get 30 points for the books that I read for my team, which is Nirvana. So the 4 prompts for Nirvana are pretty important. But then if I read from other teams' prompts, it takes 10 points off of their total. So I want to make sure I'm, kind of doing everything. All right, so the prompts are, Fleetwood Mac is Go Your Own Way, Don't Stop, Dreams, and the Chain. So for Go Your Own Way, it's a book you don't think anyone would buddy read with you. 2 is Don't Stop, a book with a relentless character who will stop at nothing. 3 is Dreams, a book with a character in a situation or place you dream of being in. And 4 is The Chain, which is a book chosen for you based on the scavenger hunt. And this scavenger hunt was really fun. So just show you kind of what it is. It was grab any favorite book, find another book in a series with the same color scheme on the cover, take the most recent release or last book in that series, and find another book that has the same number of letters in the title. Take the 4th or last letter in that title and find a book whose title starts with that letter. pick something on the cover and find a book with that thing in the title, find another book in the same genre or subgenre, take one of the author's initials, and find another book by an author who shares one of those initials and read that book. So I'm going to go through the books I picked. All right, so Under the Tamarind Tree, that's an arc I have, and it's historical fiction set during a partition, which I think is a very intriguing period of history. I don't know a ton about it. I mean, I know a little, but I feel like, to be honest, it's going to sound ridiculous, but most of it comes from pop culture. Like, I know they have an episode in Doctor Who that deals with it. Obviously, Ms. Marvel talks about it. So I have a little bit of sense of it from actual history, but most of it comes from pop culture. So I'm really excited to read this, but I'm not sure that a lot of like people are going to be like excited to read a book, about the partition. So I don't have a lot of like historical fiction fan friends anyway. So that's my Go Your Own Way. For number 2, which is Don't Stop, a book with a relentless character who will stop at nothing, I'm going with Delicate Condition, which is again another arc I have. And so I'm kind of guessing because I'm going off the summaries for these books, but this is about a woman who really, really wants to get pregnant. She's doing everything. Now she's doing some kind of weird IVF. It sounds like there may be some kind of like demon involved, but the idea is that she will stop at nothing to have a baby. For Dreams, a book with a character, a situation, or place that you dream of being in, I have The Last One by Will Dean. And this is actually a mystery thriller, but what happens is it's about these people on a cruise, and then the woman, I think it's a woman who, she wakes up and her husband's gone and nobody else is on the boat. And like, I mean, technically, I'm sure like I wouldn't like being completely alone on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean because I don't know how to like steer a cruise ship. But the idea of basically having a cruise ship all to myself and being able to be on like this beautiful, wonderful vacation that's kind of all inclusive without people around, to me is my dream come true. So I'm not, it's not even a stretch. Like the idea of going on vacation with no one else there, I mean, maybe my husband, to me is just perfect. Like I don't like socializing. So, and then for the chain, I'm going to walk through how I got here. So my book is going to be Come With Me by Erin Flanagan. And, all right, so my favorite book was I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and the book I picked for the series was Twilight, because they're red, white, and black. And then Breaking Dawn was the last book of that series. And for the book with the same number of letters, I went with Displacement, which begins with D. And then I went with the book that's coming out sometime later this year called Day, and there's a cloud on it, and so I went with Cloud Atlas. And then for science fiction, I went with Dune, and that's Frank Herbert or whatever, and so there's an F, and so that's how I came up with Come With Me with Erin Flanagan. So again, so all 4 of these are arcs, so I get to get the arcs done, and I cover all 4 of the prompts. So for Journey, we have Any Way You Want It, a book with a spoiled or greedy character. 6, Who's Crying Now, a book you know has made someone else cry. 7, Open Arms, a book in a genre or subgenre you're willing to try or try more of. 8, Don't Stop Believin', a book in a series you believe will be completed one day. So for this one, I went with Burlington for my spoiled or greedy character because it's about like a bunch of like rich people. I think it has kind of like a Stepford Wives feel like eventually, but for the book that made me cry, this may change. I was kind of looking at like what I have, what might interest me. This is My Wife Said You May Want to Marry Me, which is basically a guy's sort of memoir about his wife dying of cancer. And I've heard it's like very emotional, obviously. So that might be, but I may end up like changing that if I can think of something that, people cry in. I'm not really a big crier, so I don't really know what people would cry in. So if you have any other recommendations of books that make you cry, maybe I can see what else I have. Because I don't know how much I feel like reading something like that right now, but we'll see. And then for my genre that I don't read a lot of, I went with Whalefall. Again, Burlington and Whalefall are both arcs I have to read. Whalefall is science fiction. I do not read a lot of science fiction. I always want to read it. But a lot of it, I feel like just like fantasy and sci-fi, there's sort of like a sort of traditional type that I don't really connect to. I'm not really into robots. I'm not into like a lot of the like, I don't know, I guess sort of traditional science fiction stuff. I just can't seem to care. And so I do want to read more science fiction. And so this sounds like it's right up my alley. So we'll see. And then, I guess it's a little bit of a stretch, but for the series that I think will be finished someday, is Megan Golden's series, because this is the second book after The Night Swim. So I'm assuming this is going to continue, and, there'll be more books in this series. I was going to read, this is obviously set up perfectly for the Song of Ice and Fire series, but I've already read them, and I don't really have time to go reread one of them right now because they, take a while. I thought about reading A Night of Seven Kingdoms because that is supposed to also get a sequel, or Fire and Blood, because that's also supposed to get a sequel, but I think, I was already planning on reading the arc for Dark Corners, and it is a series, and I expect it will continue. So, so that's what I'm going to go with. So for my team, Nirvana, we have Smells Like Teen Spirit, a book featuring a rebellious teenage character. Lithium, a book with an element from the periodic table in the title. Come As You Are, a book you've already had on your July TBR prior to this. And then All Apologies, a book you've had to apologize for not reading yet. So, again, I got some arcs here. So for the rebellious teenager, I have The Last Girl Standing, which is kind of a, kids at camp, serial killer type book. And, there's always like the rebellious teenager in any of those summer camp type of books. For a book with an element in the title, I kept looking to see if I had something with like silver. I could read The Silver Chair, but I'm pretty sure, we have to read, all books have to be at least 150 pages. I'm pretty sure Silver Chair is under 150 pages. So I have Gold by Chris Cleave, and that's what I'm thinking of reading. I also have Radium Girls, so I was like, well, I could possibly read that, and then, I don't know, I can look around the house and see if I have anything else that has, an element in it. That's kind of hard to find, though. So, especially because I don't read a lot of fantasy or sci-fi, so I'm not going to get a lot of those, but there may be something in the house. And then for a book already on my TBR was Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. Wrong Place, Wrong Time was one of my favorite books of the year so far. So this has been, this comes out in August, and this was already planned to be read in July for this arc. And then for the book, I have to apologize. I was back and forth on doing Secret History because everyone's like, hurry up and read it, or a couple of the fantasy books that I've been recommended, but that's kind of recent. And then I was like, I'm going to do The Daughters of Block Island because I promised, this was an arc I've had, and I promised I would read it in June or maybe even May, and I have not read it yet. So I feel like I keep putting it off. So it doesn't come out until the fall, and so that's why I've been putting it off, because I'm trying to prioritize the things that come out sooner. But that's what I'm thinking I'm gonna do. And then for the last one, Green Day American Idiot, a book featuring an ignorant character. Boulevard of Broken Dreams, a book with loneliness or isolation as the theme. Wake Me Up When September Ends, a book you would typically read during spooky season. And Know Your Enemy, a book from the enemy team captain's favorites list. So for the ignorant character, I have Perfectly Nice Neighbors, because this arc says it has, this book says it has something to do with, racism and kind of jerky, bigoted neighbors. So that seemed appropriate. Mr. Magic is about a bunch of former child TV show stars who are now lost and trying to find their way in life. So that kind of went with the loneliness and isolation. And they're not isolated, but they're all kind of just hopeless. And then Downpour, because look at that cover, it's gorgeous, but it's also a horror novel. So those are probably, and again, those are all arcs. So two birds kind of thing. So for the ones for the captains, there were a bunch of different ones, and I'm going to be totally honest, part of the reason I picked Nirvana is because my team captain like, he loves fantasy, and I'm not a big fantasy reader, so I was like, I'm going to have a really hard time if I have to read something off of this list. So I went with, I tried to join that team so that I wouldn't have to read one of those. So I have one, I think, from each of the other captains, and I'm kind of just going to debate. I own all three of these books, so it's Piranesi, The Gunslinger, or Daisy Darker. I don't know which one I'm going to read yet. I guess I'll just see what I'm in the mood for. But I have them all, so, I mean, they're all books that are on my, like, long-term TBR, so probably just depends on, you know, like, timing and which one reads fast. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure Daisy Darker I can read in, like, a day, because I love, you know, thrillers, and they tend to read really fast. I don't think Piranesi's that long, and then, I'm sure The Gunslinger is going to be, like, kind of complicated. It doesn't seem that long, though, but I think probably one of these is just going to be when I have sort of a need to read one of these and where I can fit it in. Like, which one I think is going to be, it's going to be a mood choice, I believe. And so for other things I have to read or I want to read this month, I just got The Only One Left by Riley Sager, and actually the Bookish Drummer they're doing a read along, so I'll probably just read it anyway, because I was going to read it when it came out, but I figured I'd put it off until July so I could, I'm hoping somebody cries during it so I can throw it on for that prompt, but I'm going to read it. That was kind of my goal, to read this as soon as it came out, so obviously I put it off a couple weeks, but I want to read that this month. And then I also just got 0 Days by Ruth Ware, so I'd really like to read those. And then a couple of the other arcs I have to read are What Still Burns and Where the Dead Sleep. I think there's even more than that, but I think most of them, I think this should get me to at least mid-August. So even if I am not perfectly on time, I can still get to, then I'll still have like a couple weeks in August to get to anything else from August. And I think August has my most books for arcs right now. So August and October, which, I have plenty of time for that. So those are the 20 books that I'm hoping to get to in July. And I'm sure there'll be something else will come up and I'll be like, oh, I want to read that too. And I'll try to squeeze those in. But 20 is a lot in 31 days. I try to read a book a day, but some books don't read that fast. And then, sometimes life interferes. Usually I can definitely read a book every 2 days or so, unless it's like a really long one. So, but this is going to be a bit of a challenge. So, we'll see if I can get all 20 done, and, if I can add anything else, yay. And if I can't, well, hopefully at least I can get the 16 prompts done. So I will be back soon with my June wrap-up, because I'm still wrapping a few things up, and I want to see what I can finish. But this is where I'm looking to go with July, and what are you looking to read in July? And are you taking part in any kind of, fun reading challenge or readathon or anything that is kind of motivating you to do some of your summer reading? Hopefully not like actual summer reading. Hopefully we're all past that, right? All right. So, see you soon. Bye.